Hey artists, it's Monsterpawss. So I wanted to just take a laid back day today and just sort of chit chat with you guys and just have a little art talk. So I get the question a lot, how do I price my art? I have no idea where to start. I've never really sold art that much. Help me. Help me. Obviously, there are a few things that you want to consider whenever you are pricing your art, and a few of those things are your skill level, your experience, how long you've been drawing, and the amount of time that it took you to draw this drawing or paint or whatever you're doing. Also, the cost of supplies and miscellaneous items like shipping and shipping supplies. I'll expand more on those points later, but I do want to talk about a few things that you should not consider whenever you are pricing your art. One of the number one things is being emotionally attached to your art. Every artist makes art that shows their emotion, and it's just their emotions on paper, and it's very personal and it's very intimate sometimes. Selling a personal and intimate drawing can be very difficult, but it should not be a deciding factor in your pricing. And this is because collectors are more than likely viewing your art objectively. They're looking at it as something that they want to display in their home proudly, regardless of whatever emotions you were feeling or pouring out onto this paper. It is a piece of art that somebody wants to buy. They want to spend money on it. So the way that you feel emotionally about your art should not influence the prices. And with that being said, if you have a piece that you are just so emotionally attached to, I would recommend selling prints instead of the original. It's probably best to just keep it where it will be more enjoyed in your own personal collection. Another thing that I see a lot of artists base their prices off of is uniqueness. Now, every artist is unique with unique art, but uniqueness will never be the only deciding factor in establishing prices. It will never be the only deciding factor in somebody wanting to buy art. If it were, then you could sell art at any point, at any time, and anyone would buy it. So how do I go about pricing my art? At the most basic level, you should be able to price your art based on the facts of what it's worth. Be able to explain why your art is worth what you're asking, and be able to explain it from the financial standpoint of the collector. For example, let's say that you worked on a 9x12 piece and it took you 40 hours to complete this piece from start to finish. I would figure out the cost of the paper and whatever medium that you used. If you are charging, let's say, $10 an hour, then that piece would turn out to be about $400 plus the cost of whatever supplies that you were using. There are many other factors when it comes to pricing your art, but I would use this as a general foundation for laying the baseline price. Now, let's say that you're an artist with a large following, and you can make a piece of art, and no matter what, somebody somewhere is going to buy it. I think it's pretty safe to say that because of this, you can price your art at a higher price than most people, because not only are you paying for a popular artist's art, but you are also paying for their name. And that goes for almost anything on earth. If you buy a shirt from Givenchy, it is obviously going to be a lot more than if you bought a shirt from Walmart. So, as disgusting and conceited as it may sound, the more popular you are as an artist, the more you can charge for your art. But at the same time, just because you have a huge following on social media, you should always price your art fairly and always be able to explain the facts of what your art is worth. Now, let's say you're an artist who doesn't have a large social media following or a following online, and you want to sell your art at venues or art shows and conventions and things like that. In that case, I would suggest using the basic guidelines and also doing research on other artists in your area that maybe work in the same medium and might be around the same skill level as you are, and basing your prices off of theirs. Alright, so we talked about pricing our art. Now I want to talk about underselling your art, because I see this running rampant in the art community and it's so disheartening. I know a lot of you guys will be tempted to sell your art for less than it is worth because you think it would increase your sales. When in reality, it's human nature that when you compare something cheaper to something more expensive, the cheaper item just seems to come off as, well, cheap, and probably just not as good a quality as the more expensive item. So that's the first point that I wanted to make, and the second point is it sort of puts a damper on the art community as a whole, because it sort of sets the stigma that every artist should price their art at, unreasonably cheap prices. Otherwise, it won't sell. So it makes it harder for other artists to sell their art as well if you are underpricing your art and, everybody just expects art to be cheap as fuck. Another thing that comes with underselling your art is just immense regret. You may have spent hours upon hours of making this piece that you poured your heart and soul into, and you sold it for $100, and then yay, you get the $100, and then you're just like, damn, I really wish I hadn't sold that piece of art for $100, because now, I kind of regret it. In my junior year of high school, the first piece of art that I ever sold was a 24-inch by 19-inch graphite portrait that I spent at least 80 hours rendering, and I spent so much time on this piece of art, and I was very proud of it at the time. I sold it in a student art show that our school was hosting. I sold it for $100, and to this day I kind of regret it, because looking back, I could have sold it for so much more than $100. It was definitely not worth just $100. It was worth a lot more than that. But at the time, I was so excited, and I was proud that somebody wanted to own my art and they wanted to display it. So that's just, a point that I wanted to make. Don't undersell yourself. Sell it for what it's worth. Stick to your guns. You may get people telling you that your prices are, way too high, but if you can explain why it is that much and why it's priced that way, I don't see a problem with asking what you think your art is worth. Alright you guys, I think that's about it for this video. I hope it helped you guys out a little bit with pricing your art. For more in-depth videos with additional instructional commentary, you can visit my Patreon page at patreon.com/Monsterpawss. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and Snapchat. All the links are in the description below. You can also subscribe. We do art things. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, don't quit your daydream. So today we're going to be learning how to package and ship prints. So what you're going to need is your prints and some backing that you can get from clearbags.com.